Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's 1:18 p.m. on the 5th of January 2025. We got blipped off because I ran out of laptop. Used to only go for 3 hours, but it blipped us off 2 hours and 48 minutes or something like that. So it's a bit flubbery and unpredictable now, like me and my mind. We got blipped off. I just finished a segue talking about psychopaths and my daughter and I, me protecting my daughter as best as I could without resources when she was in England. So we got blipped off, but I want to complete the story. We're not that far from the end of it and I'm exhausted. So this is part 6, my part 6 of Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. And I want to carry on and reach completion. Starting to feel fucking orgasmic and cathartic because working it, babies. But anyway, we'll carry on. I'm just trying to figure out where I got lost and went into my segue and what triggered that. Can't even remember now. There's the trouble when you get cut off in the middle of the story, you get a bit lost in space. Right, the Sultan has said to Aladdin, let's just rewind a little bit because otherwise we're just going to be lost. O Aladdin, I have pardoned thee only that thou go forth and look into this affair and inquire for me concerning my daughter. That's probably where I segue. Nor do thou ever show thyself in my presence except she be with thee, and if thou bring her not by the life of my head, I will cut off the head of thee. The other replied, to hear is to obey. Only vouchsafe me a delay in respite of some 40 days, after which, an I produce her not, strike off my head, and do with me whatso thou wishes. The Sultan said to Aladdin, verily I have granted thee thy request, a delay of 40 days. But think not thou canst fly from my hand, for I would bring thee back even if thou wert above the clouds, instead of being only upon earth's surface. Replied Aladdin, O my lord the Sultan, as I said to thy highness, and I fail to bring her within the term appointed, I will present myself for my head to be stricken off. Now when the folk in the lieges all saw Aladdin at liberty, they rejoiced with joy exceeding, and were delighted for his release. But the shame of his treatment and bashfulness before his friends, and the envious exultation of his foes, had bowed down Aladdin's head. So he went forth a-wandering through the city ways, and he was perplexed concerning his case, and knew not what had befallen him. He lingered about the capital for 2 days, in saddest state, wotting not what to do in order to find his wife and his pavilion. And during this time sundry of the folk privily brought him meat and drink. When the 2 days were done, he left the city to stray about the waste and open lands outlying the walls, without a notion as to whither he should wend, where he should go. And he walked on aimlessly until the path led him beside a river, where, of the stress and sorrow that overwhelmed him, he abandoned himself to despair, and thought of casting himself into the water. Being, however, a good Muslim, who professed the unity of the Godhead, he feared Allah in his soul, and standing upon the margin, he prepared to perform the wuzu ablution. But as he was bailing up the water in his right hand and rubbing his fingers, it so chanced that he also rubbed the ring, Hereat its Marid appeared, and said to him, Adson, thy thrall between thy hands is come. Ask of me whatso thou wantest. Seeing the Marid, Aladdin rejoiced with exceeding joy, and cried, O slave, I desire of thee that thou bring before me my pavilion, and therein my wife, the lady Badar al-Budur, together with all and everything it containeth. O my lord, replied the Marid, 'tis right hard upon me that thou demandest a service whereto I may not avail. This matter dependeth upon the slave of the lamp. Gate go. Must be someone else's gate. Nor dare I even attempt it, Aladdin rejoined. Forasmuch as the matter is beyond thy competence, I require it not of thee, but at least do thou take me up and set me down beside my pavilion, in what land soever that may be. The slave exclaimed, Hearing and obeying, O my lord, and uplifting him high in air within the space of an eye-glance, set him down beside his pavilion in the land of Africa, and upon a spot facing his wife's apartment. Now this was at fall of night, yet one look enabled him to recognize his home, whereby his cark and care were cleared away, and he recovered trust in Allah, after cutting off all his hope to look upon his wife once more. Then he fell to pondering the secret and mysterious favours of the Lord, glorified be his omnipotence, and how, after despair had mastered him, the ring had come to gladden him, and how, when all his hopes were cut off, Allah had deigned bless him with the services of its slave. God is great. So he rejoiced, and his melancholy left him. Then, as he had passed 4 days without sleep for the excess of his cark and care and sorrow and stress of thought, he drew near his pavilion and slept under a tree hard by the building, which, as we mentioned, had been set down amongst the gardens outlying the city of Africa. City of Africa. It's a huge, massive fucking continent with many countries in it. But it's a fairy story. Aladdin lay that night under a tree beside his pavilion in all restfulness. But whoso weareth head hard by the headsman may not sleep a night save when his slumber prevail over him. He slumbered till morning showed her face, and, when awakened by the warbling of the small birds, he arose and went down to the bank of the river which flowed thereby into the city, and here he again washed hands and face, and after finished his wuzu ablution. Then he prayed the dawn prayer, and when he had ended his orisons, he returned and sat down under the windows of the princess's bower. Now the lady Badar al-Budur, of her exceeding sorrow for severance from her husband and her sire the Sultan, and for the great mishap which happened to her from the Maghrabi the magician, the accursed, was wont to rise during the murk preceding dawn, and to sit in tears inasmuch as she could not sleep o' nights, and had forsworn meat and drink. Her favourite slave girl would enter her chamber at the hour of prayer salutation in order to dress her, and this time, by decree of destiny, when she threw open the window to let her lady comfort and console herself, by looking upon the trees and rills, and she herself peered out of the lattice. She caught sight of her master sitting below, and informed the princess of this, saying, "O my lady, O my lady, here's my lord Aladdin, seated at the foot of the wall." So her mistress arose hurriedly, and gazing from the casement, saw him, and her husband, raising his head, saw her, and so she saluted him, and he saluted her, both being like to fly for joy. "Presently," quoth she, "up and come into me by the private postern, for now the accursed is not here." She gave orders to the slave girl, who went down and opened for him the door, you understand. Then Aladdin, or gate, not sure what a postern actually is, could be a gate. Then Aladdin, shall we Google it? We must Google it. We must Google it. It's almost become part of the show, isn't it, darlings? Mama too having to Google things because she's underwhelmed and inadequately prepared for my station in life as a Victorian English spoken person. A back or side entrance. A small postern door is an example. This one was a private side entrance. Private postern. Well, now we know. It was close enough with a door, though. There might have been a door. Then Aladdin passed through it and was met by his wife. Oh, that's right, we read that. No, we didn't, because I got stuck at postern. And when they embraced and exchanged kisses with all delight until they wept for overjoy. After this they sat down, and Aladdin said to her, "O my lady, before all things 'tis my desire to ask thee a question. 'Twas my wont to place an old copper lamp in such a part of my pavilion. What became of that same?" When the princess heard these words, she sighed and cried, "O my dearling, 'twas that very lamp which garred us fall into this calamity." Aladdin asked her, "How befell the affair?" And she answered by recounting to him all that passed, first and last, especially how they had given in exchange an old lamp for a new lamp, adding, "And next day we hardly saw one another at dawn, before we found ourselves in this land, and he who deceived us and took the lamp, by way of barter, informed me that he had done the deed by might of his magic and by means of the lamp. That he is a Moorman from Africa, and that we are now in his native country." When the Lady Badur al-Budur ceased speaking, Aladdin resumed, "Tell me the intent of this accursed in thy respect, also what he saith to thee, and what be his will of thee." We know what he's thinking, don't we? Wants to know if he took her virginity, took her honour, since she's a respectable married wife, but he wants to know, did he have his way with her? Read between the lines, people of earth. She replied, "Every day he cometh to visit me once and no more. He would woo me to his love, and he sueth that I take him to spouse in lieu of thee, and that I forget thee and be consoled for the loss of thee." Ugh, slimy, isn't it? "And he telleth me that the Sultan, my sire, hath cut off my husband's head, adding that thou, the son of pauper parents, wast by him enriched. And he sootheth me with talk, but he never seeth aught from me save weeping and wailing, nor hath he heard from me one sugar-sweet word." Quoth Aladdin, Tell me where he hath placed the lamp, and thou know anything thereof. And quoth she, He beareth it about on his body alway, nor is it possible that he leave it for a single hour. Moreover, once when he related what I have now recounted to thee, he brought it out of his breast pocket, and allowed me to look upon it. When Aladdin heard these words, he joyed for exceeding joy. The psychopaths always leave you the means of their own undoing, by the way. They're not always all that smart in the broad scheme of things. Remember that, people of Earth. All you have to do most times, like in the case of Benny Boy in England, forget where they were exactly in England, is call their fucking bluff. Well, anyway, all that trauma contributed to the loss of my daughter also. It's unbelievable what I went through for and with my children to end up alone. But it is the will of God, and no doubt the will of Queen Titania of the fairy folk. Keep me alone for a reason. Make sure that no evil, greedy or corrupt or rapey or predating or rotten man ever darkens my auric field again. That's why I need a kingdom, my queen, if one exists in the known multiverses. Sniff. It's a new habit I've got into in recent months, actually. It's unusual. Sniffing with contempt, like an animal. Oh! What archetype shall I incorporate today? Galadriel or sweet purring little pussy cat, content to lie in the lap of a man who ultimately betrays me? I choose Galadriel. Quite, I mean, you have to laugh. You do, you have to laugh. It's quite funny. Quoth Aladdin, What's new, pussycat? Meow, 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 meow. Like cues like. Quoth Aladdin, Tell me where he hath placed. Shut up, Davidson. Tell me. We could really run with this. We could just keep going for hours and hours, but I'm going to be good and finish my story. Quoth Aladdin, Tell me where he hath placed the lamp, and thou know anything thereof. And quoth he beareth it about on his body, you are loved. Yeah, whatever, yet to see evidence of that. He beareth it about on his body alway, nor is it possible that he leave it for a single hour. Moreover, once, when he related what I have now recounted to thee, he brought it. Oh, I've read that. I need to take a moment. Meow, 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 meow. Pussy purring and looking so satisfied. Pussy purring and looking so satisfied. Don't you dare kick that pussy. I'll come for you, motherfucker. Galadriel is here. Welcome, O my Queen of the Elves. Thank you for your graces, for your royal encouragement of my body, mind, spirit, and for your noble and honourable protection, my Queen. Gratitude. Always be grateful for the ones who come. Blessed be she who comes. When Aladdin heard these words, he joyed for exceeding joy and said, O my lady, do thou lend ear to me. 'Tis my design to go from there forthright, and to return only after doffing my dress. So wonder not when thou see me changed, but direct one of thy women to stand by the priot pastern, it's probably the same as side gate, all way, and whenever she espy me coming, at once to open. And now I will devise a device whereby to slay this damned loon. I love that. Slay this damned loon. Off with his head. I know the feeling, babies. Damned loons. There's always one, you know. There's always one damned loon. Maybe I'm the damned loon now. Out, damned spot. Certainly would look that way to the uninitiated, wouldn't it? But I'm riding through life with great courage and relative equanimity, believe it or not. Herewith he arose, and issuing from, Galadriel says hi, and issuing from, they're teasing me now, and issuing from the pavilion door, walked till he met on the way a fella, spelt Felllah, to whom he said, O man, take my attire and give me thy garments. But the peasant refused. So Aladdin stripped him of his dress perforce and donned it, leaving to the man his own rich gear by way of gift. He forced his clothes off him and forced his clothes onto him. It's a bit rude, isn't it? Just saying. Then he followed the highway leading to the neighbouring city, and entering it, so I just have to laugh at that. And entering it, went to the perfumer's bazaar, where he bought of one some really potent bang, which we discovered in earlier videos is a kind of cannabis. The son of a minute, paying 2 dinars for 2 drachms thereof. I'm assuming ounces. And drachms. I've heard of drachmas. Now we have to find out what a drachm is. A unit of weight formerly used by apothecaries. Equivalent to 60 grains or 1/8 of an ounce. Or alternatively, number 2, an ancient silver coin based on the Attic or Hellenistic drachma. Yes, I'd heard of drachmas, but not of the weight drachm. So there you go. I only had half the information to hand. And 1/8 of an ounce. I must remember that, because I won't remember it within about half an hour. Be gone. Only I could forget all the people that were awful and betrayed me, just like, you're gone. How different my life might have been. The veil of forgetfulness. It's probably why people do psilocybin and all sorts of other drugs, just to blow everything out and reset and reset. The trouble is, I reset my brain. It's so much to reset, I might never come back from it alive. Just saying. That's why my psychiatrist won't let me do the MDMA, the clinical treatment to fix my complex PTSD, and it's why I'm destined to be left alone to slowly rot for the rest of my life, because I'll never completely heal. There's too much to fucking heal from. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters greatly, but I just have to live with it. It is what it is. Paying 2 dinars for 2 drachms, or 1/8 of an ounce. So technically that's 2/8 of an ounce. if my math's correct. He returned in disguise by the same road till he reached the pavilion. Here the slave girl opened to him the private pastern side door, wherethrough he went in to the lady Badar al-Budur. When Aladdin went in disguised to his wife, he said, "Hear me. I desire of thee that thou dress and dight thyself in thy best, and thou cast off all outer show and semblance of care. Also, when the accursed, the Maghrabi, shall visit thee, do thou receive him with a welcome and fair welcome, and meet him with smiling face, and invite him to come and sup with thee. Moreover, let him note that thou hast forgotten Aladdin, thy beloved, likewise thy father, and that thou hast learned to love him with exceeding love, displaying to him all manner joy and pleasure. Then ask him for wine which must be red, and pledge him to his secret in a significant draught. And when thou hast given him 2 to 3 cups full and fast, full, and hast made him wax careless, then drop these drops into his cup, and fill it up with wine. No sooner shall he drink of it, than he will fall upon his back, senseless, as one dead." The old ketamine kick again. It's nasty, isn't it? Hearing these words, the princess exclaimed, "'Tis exceedingly sore to me that I do such deed. Withal must I do it, that we escape the defilement of this accursed who tortured me by severance from thee and from my sire. Lawful and right, therefore, is the daughter of this accursed." Then Aladdin ate and drank with his wife what hindered his hunger. Then rising without stay or delay, fared forth the pavilion. So the lady Badar al-Budur summoned the tire woman, who robed and arrayed her in her finest raiment, and adorned her and perfumed her. And as she was thus, behold, the accursed Maghrabi entered. He joyed much seeing her in such case, and yet more when she confronted him, contrary to her custom, with a laughing face, and his love-longing increased, and his desire to have her. No one wants to look at a sour old bag, do they? Smile, smile, even though your heart is breaking. Smile, even though your love needs faking. I refuse to fake love or be superficial or false. But sometimes you just have to smile, laugh at the absurdity of it all, really. There's another sniff. Then she took him, and seating him beside her, said, "O my darling, do thou, and thou be willing, come to me this night, and let us sup together. Sufficient to me hath been my sorrow, for were I to sit mourning through 1,000 years, or even 2,000, Aladdin would not return to me from the tomb, and I depend upon thy say of yesterday, to wit, that my sire the Sultan slew him in his stress of sorrow for severance from me. Nor wonder thou and I have changed this day from what I was yesterday, and the reason thereof is I have determined upon taking thee to friend and playfellow in lieu of, I'm going to vomit in my mouth, in succession to Aladdin. If I don't finish the story soon, I'm going to vomit in my mouth too. I'm getting tired, I'm getting so tired, people of Earth. For that now I have none other man but thyself. All this having to throw yourself at any available man out of sheer fucking desperation to survive, am I right? I have to be grateful for the disability pension and the roof over my head that I know not ever, ever have to grovel at a man's feet for his generosity or protection or provide me with a roof or, enough money to live on. I am grateful for that. That was my only saving grace. Otherwise I would have died 30 years ago, people of Earth, by my own hand. Just would have completed the task. Absolutely. It's evil what I've been put through. It's evil. Tricksters that still pop up from time to time. I think they're playing me for some kind of idiot. Well, that's on there. So I hope for thy presence this night, that we may sup together and we may carouse and drink somewhat of wine, each with other. And especially 'tis my desire that thou cause me taste the wine of thy natal soil, the African land, because belike 'tis better than aught of the wine of China we drink. I have with me some wine, but 'tis the growth of my country, and I vehemently wish to taste the wine produced by thine. When the Maghrabi saw the love lavished upon him by the lady Badar or Badur, and noted her change from the sorrowful, melancholy woman she was wont to be, he thought that she had cut off her hope of Aladdin, and he joyed exceedingly, and said to her, I hear and obey, O my lady, whatso thou wishest, and all thou biddest. I have at home a jar of our country wine, which I have carefully kept, and stored deep in earth for a space of 8 years. And I will now fare and fill from it our need, and will return to thee in all haste. But the princess, that she might wheedle him the more and yet more, replied, O my darling, go not thou, leaving me alone, but send one of the eunuchs to fill for us thereof, and do thou remain sitting beside me, that I may find in thee my consolation. He rejoined, O my lady, none wotteth where the jar be buried save myself, nor will I tarry from thee. So saying, the Moorman went out, and after a short time he brought back as much wine as he wanted, whereupon quoth the princess to him, Thou hast been at pains and trouble to serve me, and I have suffered for thy sake, O my beloved. Quoth he, On no wise, O eyes of me, I hold myself enhonoured by thy service. Then the lady Badar al-Badur sat with him at table, and the twain fell to eating, and presently the princess expressed a wish to drink, when the handmaid filled her a cup forthright, and then crowned another for the Moroccan. So she drank to his long life and his secret wishes, and he also drank to her life. Then the princess, who was unique in eloquence and delicacy of speech, fell to making a cup companion of him, and beguiled him by addressing him in the sweetest terms, full of hidden meaning. This was done only that she might become more madly enamoured of her, but the Maghrabi thought that it resulted from her true inclination for him, nor knew that it was a snare set up to slay him. So his longing for her increased, and he was dying of love for her when he saw her address him in such tenderness of words and thoughts. And his head began to swim, and all the world seemed as nothing in his eyes. But when they came to the last of the supper, and the wine had mastered his brains, and the princess saw this in him, she said, "With us there be a custom throughout our country, but I know not an it be the usage of yours or not." The Moor man replied, "And what may that be?" So she said to him, "At the end of supper each lover in turn taketh the cup of the beloved and drinketh it off." And at once she crowned one with wine, and bade the handmaid carry to him her cup wherein the drink was blended with the bang. Now she had taught the slave girl what to do, and all the handmaids and eunuchs in the pavilion longed for the sorcerer's slaughter, and in that matter were one with the princess. Accordingly the damsel handed him the cup, and he, when he heard her words and saw her drinking from his cup, passing hers to him, noted all that show of love, fancied himself Iskandar, lord of the two horns, protector of men. Then said she to him, the while swaying gracefully to either side and putting her hand within his hand, "O my life, here is thy cup with me, and my cup with thee, and on this wise do lovers drink from each other's cups." Sweet, isn't it? Sweet revenge too. Then she bussed the brim and drained it to the dregs, and again she kissed its lip and offered it to him. Thereat he hewed for joy, and, meaning to do the like, raised her cup to his mouth and drank off the whole contents, without considering whether there was therein aught harmful or not, and forthright he rolled upon his back in death-like condition, and the cup dropped from his grasp, whereupon the lady Badar al-Budur and the slave girls ran hurriedly and opened the pavilion door to their lord Aladdin, who, disguised as a fellah, entered therein. Aladdin, entering his pavilion, went up to the apartment of his wife, whom he found still sitting at table, and facing her lay the Maghrabi as one slaughtered. So he at once drew near to her and kissed her and thanked her for this. Then, rejoicing with joy exceeding, he turned to her and said, "Do thou with thy handmaids betake thyself to the inner rooms, and leave me alone for the present, that I may take counsel touching mine affair." The princess hesitated not, but went away at once, she and her women. Then Aladdin arose, and after locking the door upon them, walked up to the Moor man and put forth his hand to his breast pocket, and thence drew the lamp, after which he unsheathed his sword and slew the villain. Presently he rubbed the lamp, and the Marid slave appeared and said, "Adsum, O my lord, what is it thou wantest?" "I desire of thee said Aladdin, that thou take up my pavilion from this country, and transport it to the land of China, and there set it down upon the site where it was whilome, fronting the palace of the Sultan. The Marid replied, "Hearing and obeying, O my lord." Then Aladdin went and sat down with his wife, and throwing his arms around her neck, kissed her, and she kissed him, and they sat in converse, what while the genie transported the pavilion and all therein to the place appointed. Presently Aladdin bade the handmaids spread the table before him, and he and the lady Badar al-Badur took seat thereat, and fell to eating and drinking in all joy and gladness, till they had their sufficiency, when, removing to the chamber of wine and cup converse, they sat there and caroused in fair companionship, and each kissed each other with all love-liesse. Love-liesse. Loveliness, maybe? Love hyphen Liess. Maybe they mean excess of love? I gotta look it up. I gotta look it up. I gotta know where I stand. I gotta live in harmonic resonance with all that is, was, and ever shall be. I gotta be informed. I gotta be communicated with. I've gotta understand the language. What? It's a song by Amy Dane. I'm not looking for a song, sweet little earth. I'm looking for the meaning of the word. Dear goddess, we'll go on about the song. I'm just going to assume, I'll make an assumption, that it means lots and lots of love. Yummy, especially when it's real. The time had been long and longsome since they enjoyed aught of pleasure. Don't mention that to me. So they ceased not, you have to laugh. So they ceased not doing thus until the wine sun arose in their heads, and sleep get hold of them, at which time they went to their bed in all ease and comfort. Early on the next morning, Aladdin woke and awoke his wife, and the slave girls came in and donned her dress and prepared her and adorned her, whilst her husband arrayed himself in his costliest raiment, and the twain were ready to fly for joy at reunion after parting. Moreover, the princess was especially joyous and gladsome, because on that day she expected to see her beloved father. Such was the case of Aladdin and the lady Badar al-Badur, but as regards the Sultan, after he drove away his son-in-law, he never ceased to sorrow for the loss of his daughter, and every hour of every day he would sit and weep for her as women weep, because she was his only child, and he had none other to take to heart. And as he shook off sleep, morning after morning, he would hasten to the window and throw it open and peer in the direction where formerly stood Aladdin's pavilion, and pour forth tears until his eyes were dried up and their lids were ulcered. Oh, darling, I know how that feels. Now, on that day, he arose at dawn, and according to his custom, looked out when, lo and behold, he saw before him an edifice. So he rubbed his eyes and considered it curiously, when he became certified that it was the pavilion of his son-in-law. So he called for a horse without let or delay, and as soon as his beast was saddled, he mounted and made for the place. And Aladdin, when he saw his father-in-law approaching, went down and met him halfway. Then, taking his hand, aided him to step upstairs to the apartment of his daughter. And the princess, I'm so tired, being as earnestly desirous to see her sire, descended and greeted him at the door of the staircase, fronting the ground floor hall. Thereupon the king folded her in his arms and kissed her, shedding tears of joy, and she did likewise, till at last Aladdin led them to the upper saloon where they took seats, and the sultan fell to asking her case and what had betided her. The lady Badar al-Budur began to inform the sultan of all which had befallen her, saying, "O my father, I recovered not life save yesterday, when I saw my husband, and he it was who freed me from the thraldom of that Maghrabi, that magician, that accursed, than whom I believe there be none viler on the face of earth, and, but for my beloved, I had never escaped him, nor hadst thou seen me during the rest of my days. But mighty sadness and sorrow get about me, O my father, not only for losing thee, but also for the loss of a husband, under whose kindness I shall be all the length of my life, seeing that he freed me from that fulsome sorcerer." Something to think about, isn't it? Then the princess began repeating to her sire everything that happened to her, and relating to him how the Moorman had tricked her in the guise of a lamp seller, who offered in exchange new for old, how she had given him the lamp whose worth she knew not, and how she had bartered it away only to laugh at the lampman's folly. "And next morning, O my father," she continued, "we found ourselves in whatso the pavilion contained in Africa land, till such time as my husband came to us and devised a device whereby we escaped. And had it not been for Aladdin's hastening to our aid, the accursed was determined to enjoy me perforce." Then she told him of the bang drops administered in wine to the African, and concluded, "Then my husband returned to me, and how I know not, but we were shifted from Africa land to this place." Aladdin in his turn recounted how, finding the wizard dead drunken, he had sent away his wife and her women from the polluted place into the inner apartments, how he had taken the lamp from the sorcerer's breast pocket, whereto he was directed by his wife, how he had slaughtered the villain, and finally how, making use of the lamp, he had summoned its slave and ordered him to transport the pavilion back to its proper site, ending his tale with, "And if thy highness have any doubt anent my words, arise with me and look upon the accursed magician." The king did accordingly, and having considered the Moorman, bade the carcass be carried away forthright and burned, and its ashes scattered in air. Then he took to embracing Aladdin, and kissing him said, "Pardon me, O my son, for that I was about to destroy thy life through the foul deeds of this damned enchanter, who cast thee into such pit of peril, and I may be excused, O my child, for what I did by thee, because I found myself forlorn of my daughter and my only one, who to me is dearer than my very kingdom. Thou knowest how the hearts of parents yearn unto their offspring, especially when, like myself, they have but one and none other to love. And on this wise the Sultan took to excusing himself and kissing his son-in-law. Aladdin said to the Sultan, O King of the time, thou didst naught to me contrary to holy law, and I also sinned not against thee, but all the trouble came from that Maghrabi, the impure, the magician. Thereupon the Sultan bade the town be decorated, and they obeyed him and held high feast and festivities. He also commanded the crier to cry about the streets, saying, This day is a mighty grand fete, wherein public rejoicings must be held throughout the realm, for a full month of 30 days, in honour of the Lady Badr al-Budur and her husband Aladdin's return to their home. On this wise befell it with Aladdin and the Maghrabi, but withal the king's son-in-law escaped not wholly from the accursed, albeit the body had been burnt and the ashes scattered in air. For the villain had a brother yet more villainous than himself, and a greater adept in necromancy, geomancy, and astromancy, and even as the old saw saith, a bean and 'twas split. So each one dwelt in his own quarter of the globe, that he might fill it with his sorcery, his fraud, and his treason. Now, one day of the days, it fortuned that the Mormon's brother would learn how it fared with him, so he brought out his sandboard and dotted it, and produced the figures which, when he had considered and carefully studied them, gave him to know that the man he sought was dead and housed in a tomb. So he grieved and was certified of his decease, but he dotted a second time, seeking to learn the manner of the death and where it had taken place. So he found that the site was the China land, and that the mode was the foulest of slaughter. Furthermore, that he who did him die was a young man, Aladdin hight. Seeing this, he straightway arose and equipped himself for wayfare. Then he set out and cut across the wilds and words and heights for the space of many a month, until he reached China and the capital of the Sultan, wherein was the slayer of his brother. He alighted at the so-called stranger's khan, and, hiring himself a cell, took rest therein for a while. Then he fareth forth and wandered about the highways, that he might discern some path which would aid him unto the winning of his ill-minded wish, to wit, of wreaking upon Aladdin blood revenge for his brother. Never stops, does it? Constant fucking drama and chaos from beginning to end. Poor Aladdin. But we're close. We're close to the end, my beautiful people, planet Earth. At long last, we shall discover how the story ends. Presently, he entered a coffee house, a fine building which stood in the marketplace, and which collected a throng of folk to play, some at the mancala, others at the backgammon, and others at the chess, and what not else. There he sat down and listened to those seated beside him, and they chanced to be conversing about an ancient dame and a holy, by name Fatima, who dwelt alway in her devotions in a hermitage without the town, meaning outside of the town, and this she never entered save only 2 days each month. They mentioned also that she had performed many saintly miracles which, when the Maghrabi the necromancer heard, he said in himself, "Now have I found that which I sought. Inshallah, God willing, by means of this crone will I win to my wish." The Maghrabi the necromancer went up to the folk who were talking of the miracles performed by the devout old woman and said to one of them, "Oh, my uncle, I heard you all chatting about the prodigies of a certain saintess named Fatima. Who is she and where may be her abode?" "Marvellous!" exclaimed the man. "How canst thou be in our city and yet never have heard about the miracles of the lady Fatima? Evidently, O thou poor fellow, thou art a foreigner, since the fastings of this devotee and her asceticism in worldly matters, and the beauties of her piety, never came to thine ears." The Moorman rejoined, "'Tis true, O my lord. Yes, I am a stranger and came to this your city only yesternight, and I hope thou wilt inform me concerning the saintly miracles of this virtuous woman, and where may be her wone, for that I have fallen into a calamity, and 'tis my wish to visit her and crave her prayers, so haply Allah, to whom be honour and glory, will, by the time I finish this story, I might as well be a convert to Islam, mightn't I? All this praising Allah." But no offence to Muslims everywhere. But I've enjoyed your wonderful story. I have indeed. And learning a bit about your fairy tale culture too. Just saying. Just shows you there's fairies across the entire globe. Some of us don't even realise it. There's Australian fairies too. They're called bunyips and yowies and wangina, and I like the wangina. They come from Western Australia. Anyway, they're rain spirits. It's all beautiful. It's all beautiful. The multiverses, the interdimensionals, the ultra-dimensionals, the 3D realities we can merge and blend in perfect alignment by the grace of God and all manifestations of holiness. Then verily our true loves manifest, our prosperity increases, and all our psychedelic dreams are true. Oh, Mama T. Cute, innit? Well, could happen one day. The right man for me. Going to pout now. Pouting. Sniffing. What comes after the pouting and sniffing? Don't answer that question. Anyway, you have to laugh. I'm just being silly, people. I know I have beautiful friends who do love me, and I'm grateful for those wonderful men and women. Anyway, where were we? Saintly, virtuous women's helping with calamities, honour to Allah. Oh yes, through her blessings, deliver me from mine evil. Hereat the man recounted to him the marvels of Fatima the devotee, and her piety, and the beauties of her worship. Then, taking him by the hand, went with him without the city, and showed him the way to her abode, a cavern upon a hillock's head. The necromancer acknowledged his kindness in many words, and, thanking him for his good offices, returned to his cell in the caravanserai. Now, by the fiat of fate, on the very next day, Fatima came down to the city, and the Maghrabi, the necromancer, happened to leave his hostelry a morn, when he saw the folk swarming and crowding, wherefore he went up to discover what was to do, and found the devotee standing amiddlemost the throng, and all who suffered from pain or sickness flocked to her, soliciting a blessing and praying for her prayers, and each and every she touched became whole of his illness. Impressive. Wonderful gift. The Moroccan, the necromancer, followed her about until she returned to her entree. Then, entree, entry, A-N-T-R-E. Do you know how quickly the story could have ended if they just spoke plain English? It would have been over in a chapter or two. Why won't you open up? Entre in American English, word origin 1595 to 1605. Oh, you'd say we're in America by then. A cavern or cave. Cavern or cave. What? That can't. Antier. That's not right. It sounds French. It's probably entre. Anyway, I'm not going to bother going through all the pronunciations because I'm developing almost a fucking psychotic break. I'm tired. Not really, but I am tired. Anyway, where were we? Entre. Till she returned to her entre. Then, awaiting till the evening evened, he arose and repaired to a vintner's store where he drank a cup of wine. After this he fared forth the city, and finding the devotee's cavern, entered it and saw her lying prostrate with her back upon a strip of matting. So he came forward and mounted upon her belly. Then he drew his dagger and shouted at her, and when she awoke and opened her eyes, she espied a Moorish man with an unsheathed poniard sitting upon her middle as though about to kill her. She was troubled and sore terrified, but he said to her, "Hearken, and thou cry out or utter a word, I will slay thee at this very moment. Arise now and do all I bid thee." Then he sware to her an oath that, if she obeyed his orders, whatever they might be, he would not do her die. So saying, he rose up from off her, and Fatima also arose, when he said to her, "Give me thy gear, and take thou my habit." Whereupon she gave him her clothing and head fillets, her face kerchief, and her mantilla. Then quoth he, "Face kerchief." It's dressed up like the fucking Taliban. Anyway, sorry, well, it is a fucking Taliban, how they make their women veil themselves completely. Don't approve of that. Woman is more than just a pair of eyeballs. Then quoth he, all my Muslim friends just burst out laughing, "'Tis also requisite that thou anoint me with whatever shall make the colour of my face like unto thine. Accordingly, I'm probably now on the Taliban hit list. I don't fucking care. Been on more than one hit list in my day, babies. How is Afghanistan this time of day? I hear there's wonderful lapis lazuli to be had in the mines there, and might have to visit there one day. I better get along with the Taliban. Better if I want some good quality lapis lazuli. My luck with my beautiful blue eyes and my gorgeous legs and my chubbiness, because Middle Eastern men like chubby women. I'd get sold off on a caravanserai, never to be seen the light of day again. So hell no, I won't go. You can send me by post your wonderful lapis lazuli. Plenty of it. Pay me for my wonderful stories from your culture, you freeloaders, you energy vampires, you misogynistic veilers of women, you. Give me my lapis lazuli, and then some. Mama T has spoken. I'm joking, but let's just go with it. Let's just go with it, babies. I actually already have my own little piece of lapis lazuli. It's one of my favourite stones, actually. That's my only connection to Afghanistan and the Taliban and the genie. Where is my genie? I dream of genie. Think I've got one already. Trickster that he is. Delightful though. Mama T delights in his little tricks. To a certain degree, you understand. Don't push it too far, big boys. All the magic you've put upon me shall return to thee to the power of 10. Accordingly, she went into the inner cavern, and bringing out a galley pot of ointment, spread somewhat thereof upon her palm, and with it besmeared his face until its hue favoured her own. And then she gave him her staff, and showing him how to walk and what to do when he entered the city, hung her rosary around his neck. I thought only Catholic people wear rosaries. I know, because the Greeks have gombolos, don't they? No, there are other rosaries. Don't show your ignorance, Tanya Aarons. Be cool, Tanya Aarons. Swim in the deep end, Tanya Aarons. But I think I'm drowning. Up she rises, Tanya Aarons. Just survive and thrive for no other reason than to grind all their gears. On your bikes, boys. Get riding. You know where to find me. Just saying. We were stuck on rosaries. Lastly, she handed to him a mirror and said, Now look, thou differest from me in naught. And he saw himself, Fatima's counterpart, as though she had never gone or come. But after obtaining his every object, he falsed his oath, low-life cur that, and asked for oh my dear goddess, I'm sorry, I have to take a moment. I was holding back because I just was about to say the spirit of my biological grandfather, Anton Petula, just moved in behind me, right? And I pushed that thought out of my mind because I thought, well, that's silly, isn't it? Jared, if you're watching this, Jared, here's where we both freak out simultaneously because he knows my family history. Are you ready, Jared? Are you watching my videos, Jared? We're about to go into mutual freak out mode. My grandfather, Anton Petula. But after obtaining his every object, he falsed his oath and asked for a cord, which she brought to him. My grandmother Eva comes to mind. Then he seized her and strangled her in the cavern, and presently when she was dead, haled the corpse outside and threw it into a pit hard by. Not quite the same situation, but my grandfather did a spell that caused death with a magical cord too, which is why I freaked out when I realised I was about to read that paragraph. By the gods. Anyway, yes, I come from powerful witches, and that's why it's not wise to fuck with me, because they were, not that grandfather, but my mother, was so rotten and evil to me and did so much black magic to me. But I also have a protector somewhere in my ancestry who is very, very powerful. And when his powers are not sufficient enough to protect me, something else, whether demon or angel, kicks in. So that's why I'm not actually joking when I say never ever fuck with Tanya. And here's kind of a trite little reminder from the multiverse. My grandfather, he cursed a woman to death who accused him of stealing. 3 times he went to her and said, "Recant your slander against me. Do not slander me. I am not a thief." My grandfather, biological, was a very wealthy man actually in his day. He had no need to steal from people in his community or friends. I don't remember how he came to know this woman. She was an evil woman who kept falsely maligning him, as people do when they're envious of someone else's powers or abilities. It's happened to me in my day too. Anyway, that woman kept saying to my grandfather, "No, I believe you to be a thief," and would not recant. He gave her 3 chances, and then he did this spell with this cord. I don't know how the spell went or what was involved in it, but that woman began to sicken, and she was very, very desperately ill, and she went to every doctor in Hamburg, and none of the doctors could figure out what was wrong with her, till one doctor said to her, "It's a tropical disease. Have you ever travelled in the tropics?" "No," she said, "I've never left Hamburg." "Has your husband ever travelled anywhere?" "No, he's never left Hamburg either." "Has anyone come into contact with you who might have travelled? It's a disease of the tropics." Didn't explain exactly what the disease was. It was kind of a wasting disease. It was horrible. It was a horrible death she was going through. So anyway, no one would have even realised that it was my grandfather behind that, except that my grandmother Eva, bear in mind they weren't married and they were just long-time family friends, used to go and help clean his house once a week. So kind of acting as a cleaner for him. So she went to his house and she saw this dirty, smelly, kind of rotten looking old rope hanging on his back door. And she wondered, why is that hanging there? But she didn't think to ask him about it. She just threw it in a fire. Went on her way home and nothing was mentioned. A couple of weeks go by and a woman that was sickening with this strange tropical wasting disease suddenly started to get better and became healthier. When my grandfather, biological grandfather, Anton Petula, realised that this woman was getting healthy again, he went in search of the rope and noticed it was gone. He said to my grandmother Eva, "Did you burn that rope that was hanging on my back door?" She said, "Yes, I thought it was some dirty, smelly thing and I threw it in the fire." And then he flew into an absolute rage. He was utterly terrified and said to her, "Never ever interfere with my magic ever again." But it was too late. The curse had been broken and that woman had indeed recovered. And I don't know, some cosmic law. I guess it would have been too obvious if he'd whacked another curse on her. He let her live after that. But yes, he had the power to take someone's life away from them if he so chose. So, not good karma, probably something I'm paying for and all his descendants are paying for in a way. But it was fair play. He gave her 3 opportunities to stop causing him his reputation harm. And to him, his reputation was his life force. Gave her 3 opportunities to recant. And she was a scornful, vicious woman. I'm sure after her near-death experience she would have realised that it was the effect of some spell. She would have had a pretty good idea who. I'm quite sure she kept herself very pristine and guarded her filthy, lying lips after that. Just saying. But anyway, it is what it is, people of Earth. It's not nice to kill someone's soul by slandering and maligning them. It's not nice to actually kill them either, but sometimes, if that's the only avenue left to you, it is what it is, people of Earth, in the magical world. So, true story, Joe will be like, "I can't believe you just told YouTube all of that." YouTube needs to know. Don't do evil to others, you won't have evil done back to you. Do good to others, and only good comes to you. It's as above, so below. As below, so above. It's cosmic law. Anyway, makes no difference. So he's thrown the body into a pit hard by. The Maghrabi, after murdering Fatima, who'd actually done no wrong, didn't deserve any of that, threw her body into a pit and went back to sleep in her cavern. And when broke the day, he rose and, repairing to the town, took his stand under the walls of Aladdin's pavilion. Hereupon flocked the folk about him, all being certified that he was, so he's dressed up in her clothes and drag, the cheek of it, that he was Fatima the devotee, and he fell to doing what so she was wont to do. He laid hands on these in pain and recited for those a chapter of the Quran and made orisons for a third. Presently the thronging of the folk and the clamouring of the crowd were heard by the lady Badar al-Badur, who said to her handmaidens, "Look what is to do, and what be the cause of this turmoil." Thereupon the Aga of the eunuchry fared forth to see what might be the matter, and presently returning said, "O my lady, this clamour is caused by the lady Fatima, and if thou be pleased to command, I will bring her to thee, so shalt thou gain through her a blessing." The princess answered, "Go bring her, for since many a day I am always hearing of her miracles and her virtues, and I do long to see her and get a blessing by her intervention, for the folk recount her manifestations in many cases of difficulty." The Aga went forth and brought in the Moroccan, the necromancer, habited in Fatima's clothing, And when the wizard stood before the Lady Badar al-Budur, he began at first sight to bless her with a string of prayers, nor did any one of those present doubt at all, but that he was the devotee herself. The princess arose and salaamed to him, then seating him beside her, said, "O my lady Fatima, 'tis my desire that thou abide with me alway." Jesus, be careful who you let on your front door, baby girl. "So might I be blessed through thee, and also learn of thee the paths of worship and piety, and follow thine example, making for salvation." Didn't go so well for Fatima, did it? Now all of this was a foul deceit of the accursed African, and he designed furthermore to complete his guile. So he continued, "O my lady, I am a poor woman and a religious, that dwelleth in the desert, and the like of me deserveth not to abide in the palaces of the kings." But the princess replied, "Have no care whatever, O my lady Fatima. I will set apart for thee an apartment of my pavilion, that thou mayst worship therein, and none shall ever come to trouble thee." But like Rasputin with, who was it, the Empress? Was it Empress Alexandra? Nicholas's wife, you know, the one they all got shot along with Anastasia. Fuck's sake. I think it was Alexandra. Anyway, I'll have to look at that later. "Have no care whatever, O my lady Fatima. I will set apart for thee an apartment of my pavilion, that thou mayst worship therein, and none shall ever come to trouble thee. Also thou shalt avail to worship Allah in my place better than in thy cavern." The Moroccan rejoined, "Hearkening and obedience, O my lady. I will not oppose thine order, for that the commands of the children of the kings may not be gainsaid nor renounced. Only I hope of thee that my eating and drinking and sitting may be within my own chamber, which shall be kept wholly private." Indeed, because he's a man. "Nor do I require or desire the delicacies of diet, but do thou favour me by sending thy handmaid every day with a bit of bread and a sup of water, and when I feel fain of food, let me eat by myself in my own room." Now the accursed hereby purposed to avert the danger of haply raising his face kerchief at meal times, when his intent might be baffled by his beard and mustachios discovering him to be a man. The princess replied, "O my lady Fatima, be of good heart, naught shall happen, save what thou wishest. But now arise and let me show thee the apartment in the palace, which I would prepare for thy sojourn with us." The Lady Badar al-Budur arose, and taking the necromancer, who had disguised himself as the devotee. I need to lie down, people. I need to rest. Ushered him into the place which she had kindly promised him for a home, and said, "O my lady Fatima, here thou shalt dwell with every comfort about thee, and in all privacy and repose. And the place shall be named after thy name." Whereupon the Maghrabi acknowledged her kindness and prayed for her. Then the princess showed him the jalousies and the jewelled kiosk with its 24 windows, and said to him, "What thinkest thou, O my lady Fatima, of this marvellous pavilion?" The Moorman replied, "By Allah, O my daughter, 'tis indeed passing fine and wondrous exceedingly, nor do I deem that its fellow is to be found in the whole universe. But alas, for the lack of one thing which would enhance its beauty and decoration." The princess asked her, "O my lady Fatima, what lacketh it, and what be this thing would add to its adornment? Tell me thereof, inasmuch as I was wont to believe it, wholly perfect. The Moroccan answered, O my lady, all it wanteth is that there be hanging from the middle of the dome the egg of a fowl called the ruch. And were this done, the pavilion would lack its peer all the world over. The princess asked, What be this bird and where can we find her egg? And the Moroccan answered, O my lady, the ruch is indeed a giant fowl, which carrieth off camels and elephants in her pounces, and flieth away with them such as her stature and strength. It's taken great strength to complete this task today, people of earth. Maybe that's why Anton is here, giving me extra strength. He was indeed powerful. Never met him, of course, he died decades before I was born. It's probably for the best, given his proclivities to get angry with people and murder them. Oh, anyway, all jokes aside, seriously though, there is a family history of on both sides. There's a lot of magic on my father's paternal line too. Irish they were, Scottish and Irish, Viking and English, smattering of French, very powerful dowsers and don't know if I'd really describe them as witches, but they certainly had their own abilities. My cousin Megan, who's Māori and English and Scottish and Irish, has many healing abilities too. It's on both sides of our lines. It's in my Jewish husband's family lines too. It's wonderful, magical, and astonishing at times. It's why my daughters need to honour their spiritual natures and their spiritual walk, because it's very powerful in them. They have not just my bloodlines, but their Jewish bloodlines all catalysed and, what's the word? There in their core. Know your own magic. Be true to thine own self. Be proud of who you are. Let no one steal your joy or your power. Not under any circumstances, no matter how much you love them. Just saying. And flieth away with them such as his stature and strength. Also this fowl is mostly found in the Mount Kaf, which is interesting, that's a letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And the architect who built this pavilion is able to bring thee one of her eggs, meaning the genie. They then left such talk as it was the hour for the noonday meal, and when the handmaid had spread the table, the lady Badar al-Badur sent down to invite the accursed African to eat with her. But he accepted not, and for a reason he would on no wise consent. Nay, he rose and retired to the room which the princess had assigned to him, and whither the slave girls carried his dinner. Now when evening evened, Aladdin returned from the chase and met his wife, who salaamed to him, and he clasped her to his bosom and kissed her. Sweet. Presently, looking at her face, he saw thereon a shade of sadness, and he noted that, contrary to her custom, she did not laugh. So he asked her, What hath betided thee, O my dearling? Tell me, hath aught happened to trouble thy thoughts? Nothing whatever, answered she. But, O my beloved, I fancied that our pavilion lacked naught at all. However, O eyes of me, O Aladdin, where the dome of the upper story hung with an egg of the fowl called Ruh, there would be naught like it in the universe. Her husband rejoined, and with this trifle thou art saddened, when 'tis the easiest of all matters to me. So cheer thyself, and whatever thou wantest, 'tis enough thou inform me thereof, and I will bring it from the abysses of the earth in the quickest time and at the earliest hour. Aladdin, after refreshing the spirits of his princess by promising her all she could desire, repaired straightway to his chamber, and taking the lamp rubbed it, when the Marid appeared without let or delay, asking, "Ask whatso thou wantest." Said the other, "I desire thee to fetch me an egg of the bird Ruh, and do thou hang it to the dome crown of this my pavilion." Here is a picture of the Marid. When the Marid heard these words, he waxed fierce, his face waxed fierce, and he shouted with a mighty loud voice. Just as I said. But when the Marid heard these words, his face waxed fierce, and he shouted with a mighty loud voice, and frightful, and cried, "O denier of kindly deeds, sufficeth thee it not for thee that I and all the slaves of the land are ever at thy service, but thou must also require me to bring thee our lady, our liege lady, for thy pleasure, and hang her up at thy pavilion dome for the enjoyment of thee and thy wife? Now by Allah, ye deserve, thou and she, that I reduce you to ashes this very moment, and scatter you upon the air, but inasmuch as ye twain be ignorant of this matter, unknowing its inner from its outer significance, I will pardon you, for indeed ye are but innocents. The offence cometh from that accursed necromancer, brother to the Maghrabi the magician, who abideth here representing himself to be Fatima the devotee, after assuming her dress and belongings and murdering her in the cavern. Indeed, he came hither seeking to slay thee by way of blood revenge for his brother, and 'tis he who taught thy wife to require this matter of me. It's unusual for him to say no, isn't it? Take note. When a genie finally says no, haven't I said all along, when is he going to get sick of this nonsense and actually put his foot down? So saying, see, I know human nature and the nature of the genie too well. Push, 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 push. Too far, there will be consequences. Babies. Mama T has to pull herself back and behave herself sometimes. So saying, the Marid vanished. But when Aladdin heard these words, his wits fled his head, and his joints trembled at the Marid's terrible shout. But he empowered his purpose, and rising forthright, issued from his chamber and went into his wife's. There he affected an ache of the head, a headache, for that he knew how famous was Fatima for the art and mystery of healing all such pains. And when the Lady Badara of the door saw him sitting hand to head and complaining of unease, she asked him the cause, and he answered, I know of none other save that my head acheth exceedingly. Hereupon she straightway bade summon Fatima, that the devotee might impose her hand upon his head. And Aladdin asked her, Who may this Fatima be? So she informed him that it was Fatima the devotee, to whom she had given a home in the pavilion. Meanwhile, the slave girls had fared forth and summoned the Maghrabi, and when the accursed made act of presence, Aladdin rose up to him, and, acting like one who knew naught of his purpose, salaamed to him as though he had been the real Fatima, and kissing the hem of his sleeve, welcomed him and entreated him with honour, and said, O my lady Fatima, I hope thou wilt bless me with a boon, for well I wot thy practice in the healing of pains. I have gotten a mighty ache in my head. The Moor man, the accursed, could hardly believe that he heard such words, this being all that he desired. The Maghrabi, the necromancer, habited as Fatima the devotee, came up to Aladdin that he might place hand upon his head and heal his ache. So he imposed one hand, and putting forth the other under his gown, drew a dagger wherewith to slay him. But Aladdin watched him, and, taking patience till he had wholly unsheathed the weapon, the dagger, you understand, seized him with a forceful grip, and wrenching the dagger from his grasp, plunged it deep into his heart. When the Lady Badara of Budur saw him do on this wise, she shrieked and cried out, What hath this virtuous and holy woman done, that thou hast charged thy neck with the heavy burthen of her bloodshed wrongfully? Hast thou no fear of Allah, that thou killest Fatima, this saintly woman, whose miracles are far famed? No, replied Aladdin, I have not killed Fatima. I have slain only Fatima's slayer, he that is the brother of the Maghrabi, the accursed, the magician. I know, grandfather, I know. Who carried thee off by his black art, and transported my pavilion to the African land. And this damnable brother of his came to our city, and wrought these wiles, murdering Fatima, and assuming her habit, only that he might avenge upon me his brother's blood. And he also 'twas who taught me to require of me a roof's egg, that my death might result from such requirement. But, an thou doubt my speech, come forwards and consider the person I have slain. Thereupon Aladdin drew aside the Moorman's face-kerchief, and the Lady Badara Budur saw the semblance of a man with a full beard that well-nigh covered his features. She at once knew the truth, and said to her husband, O my beloved, twice have I cast thee into death risk. But he rejoined, No harm in that, O my lady. By the blessing of your loving eyes, I accept with all joy all things thou bringest me. The princess, hearing these words, hastened to fold him in her arms and kissed him, saying, O my dearling, All this is for my love to thee, and I knew naught thereof. But indeed I do not deem lightly of thine affection. So Aladdin kissed her and strained her to his breast, and the love between them waxed but greater. At that moment the Sultan appeared, and they told him all that had happened, showing him the corpse of the Maghrabi, the necromancer, when the king commanded the body to be burned and the ashes scattered on air, even as had befallen the wizard's brother. And Aladdin abode with his wife, the Lady Badar al-Budur, in all pleasance and joyance of life, and thenceforward escaped every danger. And after a while, when the Sultan deceased, his son-in-law was seated upon the throne of the kingdom, and he commanded and dealt justice to the lieges, so that all the folk loved him, and he lived with his wife in all solace and happiness, until there came to him the destroyer of delights and the severer of societies, meaning death, which comes to us all eventually. When Queen Scheherazade ended the story, she said to Shahryar, "O my lord, thou art doubtless astonished at the audacity of Aladdin, but I am assured that thou wilt be the more surprised on hearing the story of the curious adventures of Harun al-Rashid." She's determined to keep her head, that one. She's almost causing me to lose my head, but together heads will roll, babies. Keep your head while all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. That's how we roll, babies. Have a beautiful afternoon. It's now 3 p.m. I've been going all day. Can't even remember what time I started. And I need a cup of tea. And I need to confer with my bird. I need to send that grandfather energy. It's unusual that he's around, which means there's mischief afoot, because no one will protect me more than my witch grandfather. And Kookaburra's here on the bough outside, waiting for me too. I'll even go and have a chat to him. Beautiful boy that he is. Oh, he's yawning. And the ancestors that love me and fold me in their great love and protection and joy and delight and peace and comfort and ease. And who knows what is ahead of me in this very strange but magical life. Blessed be, people of earth. Take good care, be of good cheer. Never ever let the bastards grind you down. Hold your head high, and when and if necessary, call upon thine ancestors who love you, not the other filthy progenitors I was cursed with from cradle to my 60th year. Bye for now.